Welcome to Revenge Mangan. Today's story unfolds in Houston. My name is Clara Anderson. I'm 30 years old, an architect. In New York City, and apparently, according to my little sister, no longer. Welcome in my own childhood home. My sister slammed the jug of orange juice down on the table so hard the glasses rattled. Before I could react, the cold liquid exploded across my white blouse, dripping down my hair, my face, soaking into the dress I'd bought on my lunch break in Manhattan just for my mother's birthday. The room went dead silent. Dozens of eyes stared at me, at the sticky mess, at the oldest daughter who just flown in from New York, now humiliated in the middle of the living room she grew up in. She held the empty jug like a trophy, chin lifted, voice sharp enough to cut through the music. "You have 5 minutes to get out," she said, every word slow, deliberate, cruel. "This house is mine now." Looked at my parents. They didn't rush toward me with napkins. They didn't scold her. They didn't say my name. They just stood there, silent, frozen, as if their silence itself was a rubber stamp of approval. The sticky fabric clung to my skin, but my face stayed calm. Inside, something ancient and exhausted finally snapped. I wiped a line of orange from my cheek with my fingertips, forced a small smile, and met my sister's eyes. "I don't need 5 minutes," I said quietly. A few guests gasped. My parents still said nothing. None of them realized that the moment I turned toward the stairs, I wasn't just walking away from a birthday party. I was walking away from years of being the extra child and toward a chain reaction that would rip apart everything they thought they owned. Before I tell you what happened later that night and how the sister who claimed this house is mine ended up losing far more than 4 walls and a roof, tell me, what time is it for you right now? And where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel by the time I climbed the stairs to the guest room, my blouse clinging to my skin. My mind wasn't in that house anymore. It was racing backward through 30 years of history inside these same walls. The house sits in a quiet Houston suburb in Texas, the kind of place people point to and say, "That family must have it all together." My father, George Anderson, is an architect like me, or rather I followed his footsteps. My mother, Amelia, turned our home into a permanent showroom version of perfect. From the outside, we were a picture. Inside, I learned very early that pictures can lie. Samantha, 5 years younger than me, was the sun everything orbited around. By the time she could walk, my parents were clapping for every step, every scribble, every recital. My younger brother, Alex, arrived 2 years after her and slid naturally into the role of charming peacekeeper. I was the eldest, the one who took the photos, who stayed late to clean up, who did homework alone at the kitchen table while everyone else praised Samantha's latest performance. Have you ever felt like an extra in your own family movie? Useful, necessary, but easily cropped out of the final cut. That was me. When I brought home straight A's in high school, my father nodded and said, "Good, that's what we expect." Then turned to ask Samantha about her dance competition. When I made varsity track, Mom congratulated me, then left early from my meet to drive Samantha to a friend's party. The first time I realized how deep the bias went was junior year. I'd spent weeks designing a miniature eco house for a statewide architecture contest. The night before I had to turn it in, Samantha borrowed my model while I was at a study group, broke one of the structural beams, then taped it back together badly. When I confronted her, she burst into tears so loud my parents came running. I just wanted to see her cool project. She sobbed, pointing at the broken model like it was my fault. She yelled at me. My father's gaze hardened at me, not at her. "You need to control your temper, Catherine. It's just a model. Don't talk to your sister like that." I rebuilt the entire thing. Overnight, I still won second place. They celebrated by taking Samantha out for ice cream because she felt bad. Moments like that stacked up like bricks. each one small but together forming a wall I couldn't see over. I left for New York at 22 with a scholarship and a suitcase, telling myself distance would fix everything. But when Dad's firm hit a rough patch and the bank threatened to take the house, guess who they called? Not Samantha with her endless selfies and lifestyle content. Not Alex, still. Drifting from job to job, they called me in Manhattan. Catherine, Dad said, his voice tight. We need help with the refinance. They want a stronger cosigner. I wired money. I co-signed the mortgage to save the house I'd never truly been allowed to call mine. I told myself I did it out of love, out of duty. But standing upstairs now, cold orange juice drying on the blouse I bought with my own paycheck, the irony finally hit me. I had helped pay for the house my sister just announced as hers. Tell me if you'd signed on the dotted line to save your parents' home, only to be told to leave it like trash in 5 minutes. Would you walk away quietly, or would you start calculating where exactly the fault lines run? I changed into a clean t-shirt and jeans from my suitcase, tied my damp hair back, and stared at myself. In the guest room mirror, my reflection didn't look broken, it looked finished. Finished with begging, finished with auditioning for love, finished with playing fair in a game that had always been rigged. When I walked back downstairs, the party had resumed its nervous chatter. Someone had turned the music up just a little too loud, as if volume could mute what had just happened. Samantha was in the center of the living room, laughing with a group of friends from the neighborhood. My parents hovered near the kitchen, pretending to refill bowls. No one had come up to check on me. That told me everything I needed to know. I slipped my phone out of my pocket and tapped the voice recorder app before stepping back into the light. If my family wanted drama tonight, they were going to get a transcript. So I said loud enough for the nearest circle to hear, "Did you mean it?" Samantha looked up, eyebrows arched. "Mean what?" I took a few steps closer. "What you said. This house is mine now." Few guests quieted, sensing the shift. My parents stiffened in the doorway. Samantha tossed her hair. "Obviously," she said, "you're never here. I'm the one who lives here. I'm the one who stayed. And what?" I asked, claimed ownership. She smirked. "If you'd bothered to come home more, you'd know. Dad put the title in my name months ago. He knows I'll take care of them. You have your New York life. This is mine." I glanced at my father, his jaw tightened, eyes flicking away. "Is that true?" I asked him. He didn't answer, but his silence was as loud as any confession. Samantha stepped closer, smell of expensive perfume cutting through lingering citrus. "Why are you surprised?" she whispered, but loud enough for people to hear. "You only show up when you can flex your little architect in New York story. You didn't even want this place. You just wanted to control it. Well, that's over. Your name is off everything." My heart pounded, but I kept my voice level. "Everything." Her chin lifted. "Ego makes people sloppy. Dad needed my help to get the bank off his back," she said. "I'm the one who talked to them. I'm the one who signed the new paperwork. I'm the one they see as the responsible one now, not you." The words were exactly what I needed. Arrogance on record. I tilted my head. "That's interesting," I said, "because the last time I checked, my signature was still on the old mortgage. Funny, I don't remember signing anything to remove it." A flicker of panic flashed in her eyes before she smoothed it over. With a scoff, "Details, the lawyer handled it. You were too busy to pick up your phone, remember?" Translation. She'd done something she wasn't supposed to. Either she'd forged something or pressured our parents into signing documents they barely understood. Either way, the bank and any decent attorney would have questions. "Tell me something," I continued, letting my voice carry. "When you told everyone I had 5 minutes to get out, did you really think you could erase me from this house like I never existed?" Samantha crossed her arms. "Yes," she said flatly, "because you erased yourself a long time ago." For a second the words stung. Then they turned to steel under my skin. I clicked the recorder off in my pocket. "Got it," I said softly. Thank you for being honest. I turned to the guests, most of whom were now starring openly. Enjoy the party, I added with a polite smile. There's going to be a lot to talk about later. Catherine, don't be dramatic. Mom hissed under her breath as I passed her. We can discuss this after everyone leaves. I paused just long enough to look her in the eye. You had a chance to discuss it when your younger daughter poured juice on your eldest in front of a room full of people, I replied. You chose silence. I walked toward the front door, each step lighter than the last. At the threshold, I looked back once. Samantha was still standing in the center of the room, basking in the illusion that she'd finally won. She had no idea that the words she'd just thrown like daggers were now evidence. She had no idea how dangerous an architect can be when she decides it's time to bring down a structure from the inside. I didn't go straight outside. Instead, I turned down the side hallway that led to the smallest bedroom in the house, the one that had once been my grandfather's office and was now occupied by the only person under this roof who had consistently seen me, my grandmother Rose. At 82, Grandma Rose moved slower. But her mind was still sharper than anyone else's. She opened the door before I even knocked. I heard shouting, she said, eyes sweeping over my fresh clothes, then lingering on my damp hairline, and I heard that ridiculous 5-minute ultimatum. Her tone made it clear what she thought of that. I exhaled, some of my anger unraveling into exhaustion. She poured orange juice on me in front of everyone, I said, told me the house is hers now. Mom and Dad didn't say a word. Grandma Rose's face tightened, not with surprise, but with a sad kind of confirmation. Come in, she said. Close the door. Her room looked different from the rest of the house. No staged perfection, no curated decor for social media, just stacks of books, a small television, a rocking chair, and a wooden dresser older than my father. On top of the dresser sat a neat stack of folders. Sit, she instructed, gesturing to the edge of the bed. I sat. She lowered herself into the rocking chair, hands folded over her cane. Do you know who paid the original down payment on this house? She asked. I frowned. Dad always said he and Mom scraped it together after he made partner. He scraped together some of it, she corrected. The rest came from me and your grandfather. We put this house in a family trust. We wanted to make sure it stayed secure no matter what happened to jobs or the market. My heart picked up. A trust, she nodded. Your father has altered things over the years, but there's only so much he can do without the trustee. Who's the trustee? I asked, though a part of me already knew. Her gaze softened. You are Catherine, have been since you turned 25. We updated the documents after your grandfather died. You were the only one who understood what you were signing. I watched the way you worked yourself through college without complaint. I watched you send money home when your father's firm stumbled. I trusted you to protect what this house is supposed to mean. Stability, not leverage. My stomach dropped. Wait. You're saying that while they've been acting like this house is a trophy to hand to whoever they prefer, I'm legally responsible for the trust that holds it, she finished. Yes, your father can play games with titles and banks, but there are limits. There's a reason I insisted. We keep the land in the trust. Property law is a puzzle. You, of all people, should appreciate that. My mind raced through possibilities. If the land itself and the original structure were still under a trust I controlled, any new paperwork Samantha bragged about might be built on a foundation of sand. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked. Anger and bewilderment mixing. Grandma Rose sighed. Because your parents thought you didn't need the burden. Because they liked pretending they were the only ones in control. And because I hoped they'd treat you fairly without needing legal pressure hanging over their heads. She looked toward the hallway as if she could see through the walls. Tonight, prove me wrong. She reached for the top folder on her dresser, hand steady. I was going to wait until my next doctor's appointment, she said, but after hearing that girl scream, this house is mine, like she'd won a reality show, I think the timing just changed. She opened the folder, revealing copies of trust documents, addendums, and a letter in her careful handwriting with my name at the top. If you want to walk away and never look back, I will. Understand, she said quietly, but if you decide to fight, don't do it with orange juice and shouting matches. Do it with the truth, with the law, with boundaries. You don't need to burn the house down to teach them what it means to lose it. Have you ever had your anger suddenly given a blueprint? That's what this felt like. For years, my rage had been wild, unfocused like a storm. Now, for the first time, it had structure. What happens if I enforce this? I asked. If I stop pretending I'm just a guest here? Grandma Rose's eyes met mine, clear and unwavering. Then, my dear, she said, your sister is going to learn that claiming a house is very different from actually owning it. And your parents are going to learn what happens when you stand on the sidelines while one child is sacrificed for another. The chain reaction had just been handed its ignition source. I left my grandmother's room with the folder pressed flat against my chest, the way I used to carry school projects I knew were good. Down the hallway, I could still hear music and laughter. Somewhere in the background, Samantha's voice rose above the rest, animated, triumphant. She actually left, she was saying. Told you she doesn't care about this family. I didn't correct her. Let her think my exit was proof of indifference instead of the first move in a game she didn't even know she was playing. Outside, the air was cool against my skin. I walked to my rental car, slid into the driver's seat, and opened the folder again. Trust. Documents, legal descriptions of the land. My name. Over and over, not as the unwanted daughter, but as trustee, as the person with authority to decide what happened when terms were violated. There was also a newer letter from Grandma Rose, dated just a few weeks earlier. In it, she laid out her concerns in black and white. Samantha's spending, the constant refinancing, the way my parents had begun to treat the house like a bottomless ATM. If the property is leveraged irresponsibly, one line read, the trustee has my blessing to intervene, even if that means selling the home. It was the most grandmotherly version of Nuke It from Orbit I'd ever seen. I took a picture of the relevant pages, then pulled up another contact. Maya Patel, my college roommate, and now a real estate attorney in Houston, Texas. I hadn't seen her in person in months, but we still texted memes and occasional life updates. Tonight I needed more than memes. I hit call. Kat. She answered on the second ring. Wow, I was just about to text you. You in town for your mom's birthday. Yep, I said. And it's going about as well as you'd expect. I gave her the short version, the orange juice, the 5-minute eviction. Samantha's public claim that the house was already in her name, the refinance she supposedly handled. Please tell me. You didn't sign anything in the last year, Maya said. I didn't, I replied. But I did co-sign the refinance a few years ago, and my grandmother just handed me proof the land and original structure are still inside a family trust with me as trustee. There was a pause, then a low whistle. Okay, plot twist, she said. Text me those documents. And that recording you took, if it's clear. I hesitated. Is it even legal that I recorded her without telling her? Illinois is a 2-party consent state, she said, but there are nuances. Even if we can't use the audio in court, it's leverage. And the trust documents, those are the real bomb. If your parents and sister have been treating the house like a personal cash machine without the trust's oversight, that's a problem. What kind of problem? I asked. The kind that might let you demand an accounting of every refinance, every line of credit, she replied. The kind that lets you block further funny business. Worst case, if they keep acting like this, you have the authority to force a sale, pay off debts, and distribute what's left according to the trust. I stared at the house through the windshield. The living room lights glowed warm and golden. From this distance, it looked almost peaceful. So if she says this house is mine, I said slowly, I can make sure it's actually no one's. You can make sure it's not her toy. Maya corrected, but before any of that, we need information. Tomorrow morning, I can pull the latest title records and mortgage filings. For now, you need to decide something. Are you ready for your parents to see you as the villain if that's what it takes to stop them from using you? The question sat like a stone in my stomach. For 30 years, I'd tried to avoid that role, twisting myself into every shape possible to be the good daughter. Where had that gotten me? A soaked blouse and a 5-minute eviction. Yeah, I said finally, I think I am. After I hung up, I typed a short message in the family group chat. Leaving the house tonight, staying at a hotel. We'll talk when everyone's sober and honest. Until then, I suggest nobody signs or files anything new about the house. It would be inconvenient for you. I watched the 3 dots appear, then disappear. No one replied. Fine, let them stew. I booked a hotel room downtown, then sent Maya the photos and audio file. By the time I checked in, I had an email from her with a subject line that made my pulse spike. You're not going to like this. According to the preliminary record she'd pulled, there had been yet another refinance 6 months ago when I hadn't signed. A home equity line of credit had been opened, secured against the very property the trust was supposed to protect. The listed authorized contact for the bank. Samantha Anderson. I stared at the screen, anger turning icy. Someone somewhere had pretended my consent didn't matter. Someone had treated my name like a minor inconvenience to be worked around. You wanted this house so badly, I murmured to the empty hotel room. You were willing to risk everything built on top of it. That was the moment I decided I wasn't just going to reclaim my place in the family. I was going to pull every hidden support out from under the tower of entitlement my sister had been standing on carefully. Legally, so that when it fell, no one could say it was an accident. They finally called me the next morning, and instead of going back to the house, I had them meet me at Maya's downtown office, a glass-walled conference room where there were no birthday cakes or guests to perform for, just folders and reality. My parents sat down first, confused, while Samantha stalked in with designer sunglasses and suspicion, and Alex lingered near the door. Maya slid the trust documents across the table and calmly explained that the land and original structure of the house were still in a family trust, one where I was the trustee and Grandma Rose, the grantor with oversight. My father palled as he recognized his own signature from years ago. My mother's face crumpled when she realized this wasn't some ancient technicality, but a legal backbone they'd ignored. Then came the new filings, the refinance and line of credit from 6 months earlier that I had never signed with Samantha listed as the bank's authorized contact. Maya pointed out the problem clearly. I'd been a co-signer on the previous mortgage and without valid paperwork. Removing my obligation, the new deal was on shaky legal ground. At minimum, the bank would demand explanations. At worst, they could consider it misrepresentation. Samantha leaned forward, defensive, insisting she had only done what was necessary to save the house. That the banker had said one person was enough. That Dad told him I lived in New York and wasn't involved. I asked one simple question. Did you not tell a room full of people last night that the house is yours and that you handled everything? Her cheeks flushed, and when she accused me of twisting her words, I mentioned the recording, proof born not of paranoia, but of years being told my version of events didn't count. I laid it all out. The trust, my legal authority to freeze further transactions, the possibility of forcing a sale if the house continued to be abused as collateral, and my refusal to keep being treated like an invisible ATM. My father, shoulders sagging, finally asked what I wanted. I told him full access to every financial document tied to the house. No more secret refinancing, no more side deals, and an end to Samantha's queen of the castle behavior. Either we work together to fix the mess, or I would protect myself and the assets I was responsible for whether they liked the optics or not. When I turned to Alex and asked where he stood, he surprised everyone by siding with reality, admitting that last night had been messed up, that they'd leaned on me for years while pretending not to, and that if selling the house was what it took to stop the spiral, then maybe that was necessary. Samantha, furious, accused me of wanting to be the villain and kick our parents out. I didn't sugarcoat it. I'd rather be their villain with a spine than the good daughter they wiped their feet on. In that glass box, with documents spread out like autopsy reports, the old family roles, golden child, invisible child, peacemaker started to crack. For the first time, they saw that the girl they'd tried to push out in 5 minutes was the one person holding the legal blueprint to everything they were so desperate to keep. The truth, once it started coming, didn't stop. It came in waves of bank statements and credit card bills, in spreadsheets printed on cheap paper that crinkled under my fingers, late fees, cash out refinances, lines of credit used to fund home upgrades no one needed, luxury vacations. That looked good on Samantha's feed, and investments in friends doomed. Businesses. It took days, not hours, to unravel it all with Maya's team. Days of sitting across from my parents while they shifted from defensive to ashamed, from blaming the economy to admitting they'd grown addicted to the illusion of the lifestyle they were supposed to have. Samantha came to the first 2 meetings, then skipped the rest, claiming she was too stressed to sit through financial lectures. She preferred to play victim online, posting vague stories about toxic siblings and people who can't stand to see you shine. The irony would have been funny if the numbers weren't so brutal. Here's what we found. Without intervention, my parents would default within a year. The last refinance had pushed their obligations to the edge of what their combined income could handle. The line of credit Samantha had opened, using my co-signed mortgage as collateral, had nearly maxed out. If interest rates ticked even slightly upward, the house would go from barely manageable to foreclosure bait. We can keep patching holes, Maya said one evening, eyes on the projections. But patch jobs only work for so long. This house used to be an asset. Right now, it's an anchor. What are my options? I asked. As trustee, you can force a sale, she repeated. Use the proceeds to pay off everything. Set up a smaller, more realistic situation for your parents, but it will feel to them like you're ripping their home away. I thought about all the memories contained inside those walls, the fort I built with Alex in the attic, the nights I stayed up late at the kitchen table drafting my first designs, the way Mom used to hum while making dinner before she became consumed with optics. The house wasn't blameless, but it wasn't evil either. It was a container for choices. If I force a sale, I said, I want conditions. So we drafted them. My parents would move into a townhouse they could afford outright. No more mortgages, no more refinancing. No more gambling their stability on one more good year. They would get a clean slate along with mandatory financial counseling paid from the trust as long as they actually showed up. The remaining proceeds after debts and fees would be split 3 ways between me, Samantha, and Alex as the original trust intended. No favored child, no golden share equal, but with that equality came something else, responsibility. If Samantha wanted to burn her portion on handbags and parties, that would be her choice. It would also be her last safety net. I would not be there to caution the next disaster. The hardest part wasn't building the plan, it was telling them. We met one final time in the living room, the same spot where orange juice had once dripped from my eyelashes. There was no party now, just the 5 of us, and Grandma Rose, sitting regally in her armchair, cane planted firmly beside her, insisting she be present. This house is going to be sold, I said plainly. No one gasped. They'd had time to brace, my mother's eyes filled with tears anyway. We've lived here 30 years, she whispered. No, I said gently, but living here and owning it are no longer the same thing. Right now, it owns you. It owns your sleep, your choices, your fear. That's not a home. That's a hostage situation with nice curtains. My father rubbed his temples. We failed you, he said hoarsely. We failed all of you. We put too much pressure on this place, on our image, on everything. You failed yourselves, Grandma Rose said sharply before I could. And you failed her by making her your silent backbone while you pretended not to notice. She pointed at me. She's doing what you should have done years ago, taking responsibility. Samantha sat on the couch, arms crossed, eyes puffy from crying. So that's it, she demanded. You're just going to erase our home because I made one mistake at a party. This isn't about the juice, I said. That was just the moment you shouted the truth out loud. You believed this house was yours alone, and everyone else was disposable. The sale is about numbers and signatures and years of choices. You didn't create this entire mess, Samantha, but you benefited from it, and last night you weaponized it. Her gaze darted to our parents. And you're just letting her do this, she asked them. My father looked older than I'd ever seen him. We let you have too much power without enough responsibility, he admitted. We let Catherine carry the weight because she was capable, then resented her for it. This is the consequence. The word hung heavy in the air. Consequence, not punishment, not revenge. Consequence, but revenge was still in the room, not the cartoon version with screaming and ruined dresses, the quieter kind, the kind where the person you tried to erase ends up holding the pen that decides your future. I'm not leaving you homeless, I said, addressing my parents. You'll have a roof over your heads, one you can actually afford. You'll have heat in winter and food on the table. But you won't have this stage anymore. I gestured around. No more proof of success house to impress people who don't pay your bills. And if you want me in your life after this, it will be as a daughter, not as a walking loan application. I turned to Samantha. You'll get your share of the proceeds directly. No one will control it but you. What you do with it will be your responsibility. You want to start a business, do it. You want to move out of state, go. You want to blow it all in 6 months. That will be your story to live with. Her voice wobbled. And what about you? You just get to walk away looking like the hero. I don't look like anything, I said. Half the family will probably call me a monster behind my back. Some neighbors will whisper that I kicked my parents out. You'll tell your followers whatever makes you feel better, but I'll sleep at night knowing I stopped participating in a system that was slowly destroying all of us. I took a breath, and for the record, I could have done worse. Her eyes narrowed. Like what? I could have pressed charges for fraud, I said softly, for any forged signatures on those refinance documents, for misrepresentations to the bank. It wouldn't be hard to convince a prosecutor that you knew exactly what you were doing. Instead, I'm choosing to clean the slate this way. No jail, no public scandal, just structure. The room went so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. Why, she whispered, if you hate me so much, why not destroy me? I looked at her, a girl who had grown into a woman. On a pedestal, never learning what ground felt like. Because I don't hate you, I answered. I hate what we were all taught to believe. That love has to be rationed, that worth is a competition. That someone has to be above for someone else to exist. I'm not interested in swapping places with you on the pedestal. I'm interested in kicking the damn thing down. I let that sink in. Real revenge isn't watching you cry when the house sells. I added real revenge is living a life where I don't need your approval, where my value isn't measured by how much abuse I can swallow for the sake of family. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Grandma Rose exhaled. You know, she said, there's an old saying, living well is the best revenge. I think in this case, living honestly might be even better. Weeks later, when the for sale sign went up in the front yard, the neighborhood buzzed. Speculation bloomed like weeds. Some said my parents were downsizing by choice. Others muttered about money trouble. A few blamed kids these days. Only a handful of people would ever know that the sign wasn't the beginning of a tragedy. It was the final step in dismantling a lie. Samantha moved into a small apartment across town. With white walls and cheap blinds. I knew because I saw it in the background of her videos. Her content changed. Less bragging, more starting over monologues. Sometimes late at night, I'd watch one and feel a pang of something that wasn't quite satisfaction and wasn't quite pity. My parents adjusted slowly, too. Their townhouse. At first, they missed the space, the yard, the status. Over time, they seemed lighter. Fewer whispered arguments about money, fewer late notices, more evenings spent actually talking instead of performing. Alex came to visit me in New York a few months later. We walked along the High Line, coffee in hand, wind tugging at our jackets. You know, he said, Samantha still swears you ruined her life. I know, I said, and Mom still cries about the house sometimes. I know. That too. He nudged my shoulder. Do you regret it? I thought about orange juice dripping down my face while my parents watched in silence. I thought about bank statements and trust documents and my grandmother's steady gaze as she handed me the folder. I thought about waking up in my Manhattan's apartment now, breathing freely, knowing my worth no longer depended on people who had proven willing to trade it for comfort. No, I said, I regret waiting 30 years to draw a line. I looked at him. What about you? Do you think I went too far? He shook his head slowly. I think you stopped the bleeding before we lost everything, he said, and I think you taught all of us what boundaries actually look like. It's weird. I'm mad at you and grateful to you at the same time. I smiled. Welcome to adulthood. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling of my own small but fully mine apartment, a thought drifted in uninvited. Could I have forgiven them without forcing the sale? Could we have healed without the shock? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe forgiveness without consequence is just permission for history to repeat. Maybe consequence without any path to redemption is just cruelty. Somewhere between those two extremes, I'd tried to build something solid, a new foundation poured over painful ground reinforced with steel. Instead of silence, I don't know if my family will ever fully understand what I did or why. I don't know if Samantha will ever look at me and see a sister instead of an enemy. But I do know this. The girl who once tiptoed around her own home, desperate not to upset the balance, is gone. In her place stands a woman who knows that loving your family doesn't mean letting them set you on fire to keep themselves warm. So I'll leave you with this question. When someone tells you to get out in 5 minutes because this house is mine, is the real revenge taking the house back or finally walking away and building a life where you don't need their house at all? Maybe in the end, the most powerful revenge isn't making them lose something. It's proving you never needed their permission to win. Our team at Revenge Mangan is dedicated to crafting powerful, meaningful revenge stories that are 100% fictional. We create these scripts solely to share life lessons and positive educational messages with our viewers. This storyline highlights the importance of self-respect, healthy boundaries, and taking responsibility for our choices even within a family. It shows that blind favoritism and financial irresponsibility can destroy relationships while honesty and accountability can rebuild them on stronger ground. In the end, the script reminds viewers that real strength is choosing justice and growth instead of staying silent in a toxic environment.